The human soldiers came screaming through the streets, guns blazing, rescuing thousands of Rizian eggs from certain doom as the aliens closed in. Johnny Robertson led them, the human that the Rizians had dismissed as just another violent, unpredictable savage. But now, with their capital besieged by a technologically advanced alien fleet intent on stealing their technology and enslaving their people, the Rizians had no choice but to turn to the humans for help. Zephyr, the Rizian leader, had fought until the bitter end. But with the fall of the city imminent, he knew there was only one hope for his species: thousands of hibernating Rizian eggs, hidden away in a secret underground bunker. Eggs that held the future of his entire race. So Zephyr asked Johnny, the human soldier he had so distrusted and maligned, to take his band of humans and evacuate the eggs to safety, to protect the last hope for Rizian survival. Johnny didn't hesitate. He led his squad of battle-hardened human veterans out into the chaotic, war-torn streets. They fought through enemy forces, watching the aliens steal Rizian technology and round up the population for enslavement. Finally, they reached the bunker deep underground, and there Johnny saw the eggs, thousands of them. And he knew that if those eggs were captured, it would mean the extinction of the Rizian species itself. The aliens were closing in. There was no time. So Johnny made the hard choice, the only choice. He ordered the eggs onto a cargo ship to be carried off-world to safety, while he and his men remained behind to mount a last desperate defense, buying time for the ship to escape. As the ship lifted off carrying the future of the Rizian race to the stars, Johnny and his humans fought to the last, holding the line against overwhelming odds, wondering if the Rizians would remember their sacrifice, the sacrifice of the terrifying, savage humans who, in the end, were the only ones to come to the rescue. Johnny and his men fought until their guns ran dry and their bodies failed. But it was enough. The cargo ship carrying the precious Rizian eggs broke orbit, soaring up into the sky. Johnny allowed himself a moment of triumph as he watched it disappear into the clouds. But the victory was short-lived. Alien fighters streaked after the escaping ship, their engines roaring. Johnny's heart sank. He couldn't let them recapture those eggs. In a flash of desperate inspiration, he pulled out his handheld comm device. His fingers flew over the keypad as he remotely accessed the cargo ship's navigation system. He furiously typed in a string of commands, his brow furrowed in concentration. With a final keystroke, he engaged a randomized hyperspace jump. The cargo ship winked out of existence, vanishing to an unknown corner of the galaxy. The eggs were safe, but lost. Johnny had no time to ponder their fate. Alien soldiers swarmed his position, their weapons fixed on him. He raised his hands in surrender, his body battered, but his spirit unbroken. They dragged him away, through the rubble-strewn streets, past the huddled Rizian captives. They brought him to a towering alien figure, the Overseer. "Where are the eggs?" the Overseer demanded, his voice a guttural hiss. Johnny met his gaze defiantly. "Go to hell." The torture that followed was unimaginable. Johnny's screams echoed through the alien stronghold. They used methods he had never encountered, technologies he couldn't comprehend, but he held firm, drawing on reserves of human stubbornness and grit. He would not betray the Rizians. Days bled together in a haze of pain, until finally, a chance presented itself, a momentary lapse in his guard's attention. Johnny leaped into action, his battered body fueled by adrenaline. He fought like a man possessed, bare fists against alien steel. Leaving a trail of broken bodies, he fought his way into the heart of the alien base. And there, he found Zephyr. The Rizian leader was strapped to an interrogation table, his face gaunt but eyes defiant. Johnny freed him, supporting Zephyr's weight as they staggered through the corridors. Alarms blared around them. Together they planted explosive charges at key structural points. The ground shook with each muffled boom. They burst into the hangar bay, fighting through the last of the guards. They clambered aboard a small fighter craft, Zephyr's fingers dancing over the unfamiliar controls. The engines flared to life and they rocketed out into the sky, leaving the burning alien base behind them. As they broke orbit, Zephyr turned to Johnny, his expression urgent. The eggs, each one has a tracking beacon. If we can get to the sensor network on Asteria, our colony world, we might be able to find them. Johnny nodded grimly. Then that's where we're going. He knew it wouldn't be easy. Asteria had likely fallen along with Rizia Prime, but he had come this far, fought this hard. He wasn't about to give up now. The human and the Rizian, united by circumstance and sacrifice, set course for Asteria, chasing a desperate hope as fragile and precious as the lost eggs themselves. The battered fighter craft dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder, revealing the verdant world of Asteria. Johnny let out a sigh of relief at the sight of the pristine Rizian colony, untouched by the devastation they'd left behind. As they approached the planet's orbit, a burst of static crackled over the comm system. Unidentified vessel, this is Asterian Defense Control. State your purpose or be fired upon. Johnny glanced at Zephyr, who nodded grimly. This is Zephyr, leader of the Rizian people. We come seeking aid. There was a long pause before the voice responded. Transmit authentication codes immediately. Zephyr's fingers flew over the console, inputting a complex series of digits. Tense seconds ticked by as they waited for a response. Codes verified. Proceed to landing pad Delta 7. Any deviation from this flight path will result in immediate termination. As they descended through the atmosphere, Johnny saw the planet's surface filled with defense turrets and patrolling fighters. They touched down on a heavily fortified landing pad, surrounded by stern-faced Rizian soldiers with weapons trained on their craft. The moment they stepped out, they were surrounded. A tall, scarred Rizian in an officer's uniform pushed through the ranks. I am General Valen. You have some explaining to do. Johnny stepped forward, hands raised. Sir, we don't have time for a full debrief. The fate of your entire species is at stake. Valen's eyes narrowed. And why should I trust the word of a human? Because I risked everything to save thousands of your people's eggs, Johnny shot back. And right now those eggs are lost in space with an alien armada hunting them down. A murmur ran through the assembled soldiers. Valen studied Johnny intently, then turned to Zephyr. Is this true? Zephyr nodded solemnly. Every word. We need access to your sensor network to locate the egg ship. Valen's face hardened. Impossible. We've taken the entire system offline to avoid detection. Then we'll bring it back online, Johnny insisted. Just give us a chance. After a tense moment, Valen relented. Follow me. They were led to a bunker deep beneath the surface. Banks of dormant computers lined the walls of a vast chamber. Valen gestured to the central console. This is the hub of our sensor network, but it's useless without the uplink nodes spread across the planet's surface. Johnny studied the system schematics, his mind racing. We'll have to reactivate them manually. How many are there? 6, Valen replied, scattered across some of the most inhospitable terrain on Asteria. Johnny turned to Zephyr. We'll split up. Cover more ground that way. Zephyr nodded. I'll take a team of our best warriors. And I'll go with the humans, Johnny added, glancing at a group of battle-hardened Marines who had been eyeing him curiously. As they geared up for the mission, Johnny addressed his team. Listen up. We're about to trek through alien territory to flip some switches. Simple in theory, probably a nightmare in practice. Watch each other's backs and stay frosty. The Marines nodded grimly, checking their weapons one last time before moving out. The next hours were a blur of tense patrols through dense jungles and across barren wastelands. Johnny's team encountered scattered groups of alien scouts, resulting in brief but intense firefights. They activated their assigned nodes one by one, each success bringing them closer to their goal. As they approached the final uplink site, Johnny's comm crackled to life. Johnny, this is Zephyr. We've activated our nodes, but we're pinned down by heavy enemy fire. There's some kind of jamming device preventing us from calling for backup. Johnny cursed under his breath. Hang tight, we're on our way. They double-timed it to Zephyr's position, the sounds of battle growing louder with each step. As they crested a ridge, Johnny saw Zephyr's team trapped in a narrow ravine, surrounded by alien forces. All right, Marines, Johnny growled. Time to earn our pay. Jensen, Garcia, flank left. Kowalski, you're with me. The rest of you provide covering fire. They launched into action, catching the aliens off guard with their sudden assault. Johnny fought his way through the chaos, finally reaching Zephyr's position. "The jamming device," Zephyr shouted over the din. "It's in that structure." He pointed to a squat building dripping with antennae. Johnny nodded grimly. "We'll handle it. Get your people to safety." He turned to his team. "Marines, new objective. We're taking out that jammer, whatever it takes." They fought their way across the battlefield, alien weapons fire sizzling past their heads. As they reached the jamming station, Johnny realized with a sinking feeling that they were out of explosives. "Sir," one of the Marines called out, "we can overload the power core. It'll take out the whole building." "And us with it," Johnny finished. He looked at his team, saw the willpower in their eyes. "It's been an honor, gentlemen." They stormed the building, clearing room after room until they reached the central chamber. As the Marines set to work on the power core, Johnny provided cover fire from the doorway. "It's done, sir," came the call. "You've got 30 seconds to clear out." Johnny hesitated for a split second. "Get out of here. That's an order." "Sorry, sir," came the reply. "No can do." The building erupted in a massive fireball, taking the jamming device and the brave Marines with it. Johnny watched from a safe distance, his heart heavy. With the interference gone, they were able to activate the final node. Johnny and Zephyr raced back to the command center, where General Valen was waiting. "The network is online," Valen reported. "We're scanning for the egg ship's beacon now." Tense minutes passed as they waited for results. Finally, a blip appeared on the long-range sensors. "There," Zephyr exclaimed. "But it's moving away fast. And look, the alien fleet is mobilizing to pursue." Johnny studied the sensor readouts, his mind racing. "We need to change its course. Can we send it new coordinates?" Zephyr's eyes lit up. "The defense laser. We can modulate the beam to transmit data directly to the ship's computer core." They worked feverishly to reconfigure the massive laser battery, praying they weren't too late. Just as they finished the transmission, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "Multiple hostile contacts incoming," a technician shouted. "It's a full-scale invasion force." General Valen's face was grim. "We can't hold against that kind of firepower. All RDF ships prepare for immediate evacuation." As chaos erupted around them, Johnny and Zephyr sprinted for the last remaining transport. They barely made it aboard before the ship blasted off, leaving the doomed colony behind. From the viewport, they watched as Asteria's defenses crumbled under the alien onslaught. Johnny's fists clenched at his sides, thinking of the brave men and women they were leaving behind. "We can't let their sacrifice be for nothing," he said quietly. Zephyr placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we won't. We'll find that ship, Johnny, and we'll make sure the Rizian race survives." As the transport jumped to hyperspace, Johnny's mind was already racing, planning their next move in this desperate race across the stars. The battered transport limped through the outer systems, its engines sputtering and life support systems barely operational. Johnny and Zephyr hunched over the sensor readouts, desperately searching for any trace of the Rizian egg ship. "There!" Zephyr exclaimed, pointing to a faint blip on the screen. "A warp signature." Johnny adjusted their course, following the trail to a remote asteroid belt. As they navigated through the dense field of rocky debris, a familiar shape emerged, the egg ship drifting powerless amidst the asteroids. "Damn," Johnny muttered, assessing the damage. "We need to board her." They suited up and took a shuttle across the void. Johnny docked with practiced precision, and they entered the airlock. The moment they stepped inside, they knew something was wrong. Emergency lights flickered weakly, and the air was thin and cold. Fighting their way through decompressed sections, they reached the central core. Row after row of stasis chambers stretched before them, each designed to nurture a precious Rizian egg. But as they moved deeper into the chamber, their hope turned to horror. Empty pods gaped open, their contents missing. "No," Zephyr whispered, his voice cracking. "How did they find it?" Johnny's heart made. "Let's get to the bridge. Maybe we can salvage something from the ship's logs." They pressed on, every step a struggle against failing gravity and debris-strewn corridors. On the bridge, Johnny's fingers flew across the controls, coaxing life into dormant systems. "Got it," he said grimly, scanning the data. The Overseer hit them with some kind of disruption weapon, knocked out their systems, but the random jump kept them from being captured outright. Zephyr leaned in, reading over Johnny's shoulder. The AI initiated an evacuation protocol. It launched the eggs in escape pods before total system failure. Johnny's eyes widened as he dug deeper into the logs. 27 pods, scattered across charted space. He turned to Zephyr, his expression grim. "The aliens got most of them. There are only 5 unaccounted for." A warning klaxon blared, startling them both. "Shit," Johnny cursed. "We're almost out of air. We need to move." As they raced back to their shuttle, Johnny's mind raced. They couldn't leave the egg ship for the aliens to find, but they couldn't tow it either. An idea struck him as they reached the airlock. "I've got a plan," he said, strapping himself into the pilot's seat. "It's crazy, but it might work." Johnny maneuvered their shuttle to the egg ship's exterior, attaching makeshift couplings to the vessel's asteroid tug thrusters. With a series of precise bursts, he slowly extracted the crippled ship from the debris field. "Now for the fun part," he muttered, fingers dancing across the controls. He accessed the egg ship's reactor controls, initiating an emergency plasma vent. The superheated material spewed into space, igniting a chain reaction that tore through the asteroid field behind them. The shockwave buffeted their small craft as they rocketed away, the asteroid belt collapsing in their wake. Any trace of their passage was obliterated in the cosmic carnage. Safe for the moment, Johnny plotted a blind warp jump. As the stars blurred around them, he turned to Zephyr. "We need to find those pods. It's our only shot." They scoured long-range communications, searching for any hint of the missing eggs. Days passed in a haze of static and encrypted chatter. Just as despair began to set in, a faint signal caught their attention. Following the beacon, they discovered the first pod, battered but intact. As they brought it aboard, Zephyr's eyes widened in recognition. "These markings, it's from the Trion lineage." Johnny raised an eyebrow. "Trion?" Zephyr nodded solemnly. "A warrior subspecies. They were thought to be extinct, wiped out defending our homeworld ages ago." As if on cue, the pod's stasis field flickered and failed. The egg within began to pulse with life, its occupant stirring after centuries of slumber. Johnny watched in awe as the first Trion hatched, its eyes already blazing with an ancient fury. He turned to Zephyr, a glimmer of hope in his voice. "Maybe our odds just got a little better." But as more Trion emerged, their battle-hardened instincts kicking in almost immediately, Johnny realized their greatest challenge lay ahead. These weren't just allies. They were living weapons. And somehow, he'd have to find a way for humanity and these reborn Rizian warriors to work together against the overwhelming alien threat. The hunt for the remaining pods would have to wait. First, they had a crew to train and a war to prepare for. The battered transport shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its engines sputtering and warning lights flashing across the cockpit. Johnny gripped the controls, his fist clenched with tension as he scanned the readouts. "We've got a signal," he announced, his voice tight. "Faint, but it's there." Zephyr leaned over his shoulder, eyes fixed on the flickering display. "Which system?" "Proxima Centauri. Looks like the pod's adrift in the outer asteroid belt." They pushed the failing engines to their limit, racing against time and the alien fleet hot on their heels. As they approached the asteroid field, a barrage of energy weapons lit up space behind them. "Incoming!" Zephyr shouted, scrambling to the weapons console. Johnny's hands flew across the controls, weaving the ship through a maze of tumbling rocks. "I see the pod," he called out, prepping for retrieval. The transport shook violently as a glancing hit from an alien fighter scorched its hull. Zephyr returned fire, his shots finding their mark and sending the pursuer spiraling into an asteroid. With a practiced hand, Johnny maneuvered their ship alongside the drifting pod. The magnetic grapples engaged, pulling the precious cargo into the airlock just as another volley of enemy fire erupted around them. "We're hit!" Johnny yelled as alarms blared throughout the ship. "Port engine's gone. We can't outrun them like this." Zephyr's eyes darted across the sensor display, searching for options. "There," he pointed. "A neutron star, less than a light year away." Johnny's brow furrowed as he understood the plan. "You're insane," he muttered, but his hands were already plotting the course. They limped towards the massive stellar remnant, its gravitational pull growing stronger with each passing moment. The alien ships closed in, their weapons tearing chunks from the transport's armor. "Brace for it!" Johnny shouted as they skimmed the edge of the neutron star's accretion disk. A wall of superheated plasma erupted behind them, the shockwave catching their pursuers off guard. Johnny fought the controls as the transport rode the cosmic tsunami, hurtling them across vast stretches of space in mere seconds. When the violent shaking finally subsided, they found themselves in an unfamiliar system. A massive gas giant loomed before them, a desolate moon orbiting silently in its shadow. "That's it," Zephyr said softly. "The final pod signal is coming from there." They landed on the frozen surface, the ship's remaining systems failing one by one. Stepping out onto the barren landscape, they were greeted by an eerie silence and a field of twisted metal, the remains of alien scout ships. "They beat us here," Johnny growled, his breath misting in the frigid air. They followed the trail of destruction, their boots crunching on the icy ground. In a deep crater, they found what they were looking for, and what they feared most. The escape pod lay in shreds, its protective shell torn open like a discarded husk, but there, in the center of the devastation, a lone figure stirred. They rushed forward, finding a grievously wounded Rizian warrior. In his arms, he cradled a battered stasis chamber, its precious contents miraculously intact. The warrior's eyes flickered open as they approached. He spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "The Trion must survive." Zephyr knelt beside his fallen kinsman, gently taking the stasis chamber. "We're here, brother. Your mission is complete." With his last breath, the warrior began to recite an ancient incantation. The words seemed to hang in the air, filling Johnny with a sense of profound importance. Zephyr's eyes widened in recognition. "The ritual of rebirth," he breathed. "I never thought I'd hear it spoken aloud." Before Johnny could respond, the sky erupted in a blinding flash of light. Alien fighters screamed overhead, raining death upon the crater. "Zephyr, move!" Johnny shouted, shoving his friend aside as a torrent of plasma rained down. The world exploded into chaos. When the dust settled, Johnny found himself pinned beneath a pile of rubble, his body broken but the stasis chamber clutched protectively to his chest. Zephyr crawled to his side, his face a mask of anguish. "Johnny, why?" "Had to. Keep it safe," Johnny gasped, his vision beginning to fade. "It's your last hope." Zephyr gently took the unharmed egg, his eyes brimming with tears. "I won't let your sacrifice be in vain, my friend." With trembling hands, Zephyr began the ancient Trion rite. As he chanted, a soft glow emanated from his fingertips, intertwining with the last vestiges of Johnny's life force. The egg pulsed with an otherworldly light as a crystalline shell formed around it, growing stronger with each passing moment. Zephyr poured every ounce of his being into the ritual, feeling his own life ebb away as the chrysalis took shape. With the last of his strength, Zephyr stood and hurled the shimmering cocoon towards the looming gas giant. It streaked across the sky, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness. As Zephyr collapsed beside his fallen comrade, he watched the chrysalis plunge into the planet's turbulent atmosphere. The swirling storms embraced it, carrying the last ember of Rizian life into the unknown. Zephyr's eyes closed, a small smile on his lips. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had given their people a chance at renewal. As consciousness slipped away, he felt a profound sense of peace. The journey was over, but a new chapter in Rizian history was about to unfold across the stars.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.